Hi friends, and welcome back to my channel. So I recently made a video about weird woman literature where I talked about what that means and gave you a few recommendations that I have really enjoyed recently. And from there, I kind of thought it would be fun to make it a series. Weird woman literature is already a subsection, but there are so many different topics discussed within weird woman literature that I thought it would be really fun to break it down even further and recommend a couple of books in different sort of niches within weird woman lit, if that makes sense. So for this one, I want to talk about women who are obsessed. Obsession takes different forms in weird woman lit, but often it's an obsession with a friend or an obsession with a partner. So today I have 3 recommendations for you for obsession weird girl fiction. My first recommendation is a recent read that I absolutely loved, and it was Pig by Matilda Pretesi. So this one follows a woman named Valentina, and she is in her mid-20s, and Val is obsessed with pigs. She has been ever since she was a little girl. They are her safe place. She uses them to decompress, to feel better. She lists their breeds in her mind to try to calm herself. She just loves pigs, and she knows almost everything there is to know about pigs. And Val has a best friend named Clara who she lives with. She knew Clara in high school, and they reunited later on and became best friends once again. And the thing about Clara is that she is incredibly manipulative. She gives Val a piece of paper every day that tells her what to eat for lunch, what to wear. She expects Val to be home every single day right after work. She gets upset if Val is even a few minutes late. She controls every aspect of Val's life, and in the beginning we sort of see Val feeling positive about that. She feels like it's a safe place. It's comforting that someone else is telling her what to do. She has routine, she has structure, and that's something that she likes and wants. But as the book progresses, we kind of go back in time and talk about Val's childhood and her obsession with pigs, and we learn more about her relationship with Clara and how Clara has never supported her in her obsession and thinks that she's weird and has tried to convince her to not engage in that hobby and that interest anymore. And we also get a lot of time spent with Val at work. She basically goes between work and home. She works at a bookshop, and she has a few coworkers there who really care about her and invite her to things and want her to be able to be involved in the outside world, and Val doesn't feel like she can. And when she's offered an opportunity to write a book about pigs, she kind of has to decide whether she wants to do this thing for herself or if she will be impacting her relationship with Clara too much, and she doesn't really know how to feel about it. So to me, this book is about obsession between friends. It is about toxic friendships and toxic relationships. It's about manipulation. There also are sapphic elements to this, and the relationship between Val and Clara is sort of blurry. Val doesn't really know what she's feeling. She doesn't know what type of relationship that she has with Clara. She treats Clara as if Clara were her partner, and she is caretaking for Clara as if she was her partner. So it kind of blurs those lines. And the other thing that I think makes this book so special and unique is that Val is very, very much autistic coded. She requires routine. She needs things to be the same. She has a hard time making choices. She gets overstimulated. She has a special interest in pigs, and she has a really hard time socially. So the fact that there is someone who she feels like is helping her fit in, that is all she ever wanted. She wanted to be a part of a group. She wanted to fit in. And Clara has taken advantage of Val's inability to stand up for herself and for her desire to be liked and to be like everyone else. So the book is about obsession with your passion. It's about obsession between female friends and how negative that spiral can be. Female friendships are incredibly valuable, but they can also be very toxic if given the opportunity, especially if you have a power dynamic where one person has all the power and the other person is easily taken advantage of. It just creates a really scary dynamic where there aren't checks and balances in the relationship. I really, really liked this book. I thought that it was a fantastic look at obsession, and specifically through the lens of someone who is autistic or neurodivergent. And this is one of my favorite obsession books. My second obsession weird girl recommendation recommendation is My Husband by Maud Ventura. So this one follows an unnamed main character. She is 40 and she has a husband and a couple of children, and she is starting to feel like her husband is not noticing her anymore. So she decides to begin keeping score of what her husband is doing wrong or not doing at all. And she writes everything down in this little notebook to keep track of all of the things that her husband has done wrong. And as she is tallying down these things, she is coming up with ideas for punishments, things that she can do to sort of enact little bits of revenge against her husband. She's also obsessed with appearances. She is obsessed with curating a vibe for her husband to walk into. When he gets home, she plans the perfect outfit, the perfect lipstick, the perfect book to sit and read, the lighting, the temperature of the room, all of these things to create a perfect environment for her husband to walk into so that he will notice her, so that he will love her. She is deeply insecure and deeply obsessed with appearances and making sure that her husband is still in love with her. She wants to appear effortless, but she's actually meticulously preparing every single thing in her home for her husband to come home to. Not only does she record things that he does wrong just in day-to-day life, but she also tests him and sets traps for him to fall into, not literally, but metaphorically, testing his loyalty and attention and trying to prove to herself that he is still noticing her. This is sort of a thriller, sort of a character study. It kind of blends together different genres. But the scariest part of this is the exploration of what happens to a relationship when one person stops putting in effort and the other person doesn't feel seen. It has a lot of conversation around a mother who didn't really want to have children and feels like she sacrificed everything and ended up losing the attention of the person that she cares about the most, her husband. All of her attention is on her husband, not her children. She obviously wanted to remain a couple and not have kids. She's struggling with that, but really that's not the focus of the book. The focus is on that loss in their relationship and that feeling that things aren't the same as they used to be. And that is a scary feeling. Imagining a time 20 years down the road where you've been married for a long time and there's no spark in your relationship. And she just sort of takes that to the extreme and becomes obsessive about proving that to herself, that there is a spark in their relationship. And she seems to come up short sometimes. This one is translated from the French. I think that the writing is very clear and easy to understand. It doesn't have any of that sort of translation weirdness that can happen sometimes. It's very readable. It is fast-paced and short enough that I read it in a day. And I think it's one of the best obsession weird girl books that I've read. Okay, and my final recommendation for obsession weird girl books is Scrap by Calla Hinkle. So this one follows Esther, and Esther recently got dumped by her girlfriend and got stuck with a big mortgage that she has to pay, and she doesn't really have any money. And one day she goes to an event with a friend and meets a wealthy woman named Naomi. And Esther is a quote unquote starving artist. She is a crafter and a maker, and she is not getting enough business to pay all of the bills. So when she meets Naomi, and Naomi has a proposition for her about scrapbooking her family's memories, she ultimately decides to take Naomi up on this offer because she's paying really well. Everything is super secretive. Naomi doesn't want anyone to know why she's scrapbooking or that she's scrapbooking the family's memories, but she gets boxes and boxes of these memories and begins to put together these scrapbooks for Naomi. And she's also obsessed with true crime podcasts, so she's listening to them as she's scrapbooking. And one day she finds out that Naomi was killed in a freak accident. And from there, her mind goes a little bit haywire, and whether it is just her obsession with true crime or if something really did happen, she begins to believe that Naomi might have been murdered. So Esther spends her time looking at all the little pieces in the scrapbook, trying to piece together what may have happened, to decode what she perceives as a riddle about what happened to Naomi. And this becomes a full-blown obsession where Esther is getting way too involved in Naomi's former life and trying so hard to piece together a mystery that may or may not be there. So this one is an interesting take on obsession because she's obsessed with this woman Naomi, and it has to do with sort of parasocial things where she knows this person peripherally and knows her through these artifacts of her life, but doesn't really know her as a person, but she becomes completely obsessed. And it also kind of plays with that idea of obsession with the media that we consume and how true crime can create obsession with the idea that something is afoot, even if nothing is, even if this was a freak accident. So the book sort of talks about wealth and power. It talks about justice versus revenge and art and truth. This is a thriller and it has some fun twists and turns. It's very readable. I flew through it in a day. I also really like the idea that these artifacts of our lives can tell stories about what may have happened to us. She's sort of trying to be a detective in a situation where she has no, professional experience with that and doesn't really need to be a detective. She's taking it upon herself. It kind of also reminds me of like internet sleuths who will, do everything they possibly can to find out information about a case. People on the internet are very, very good at figuring stuff out. And there is an element of obsession with her ex-girlfriend as well. She's hung up on that. She can't really move on. So there is that relationship element, though I wouldn't say that that is the focus. But Esther just has an obsessive personality, and everything that she puts her time into, everything that she gets involved with becomes obsessive for her. So that is my third recommendation for obsessive girl fiction. All right, friends, those are my 3 recommendations for obsession weird girl fiction. I really enjoyed these 3. I think that they all have something unique to say and to add to the conversation. I think obsession is kind of a common theme in a lot of weird girl books, so I wanted to touch on it in today's video, but I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, feel free to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.